What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to the Rink Rat Report podcast. I'm your host, Jason Cooper here. Today, we're going to be talking about and taking a look at a couple of the Leafs unrestricted free agents heading into the 2024 unrestricted free agency period on July 1st. July 1st is around the corner. I'm recording this on June 12th. Couldn't come any sooner. It's crazy. We just have like a couple weeks and then it's the draft. And then week after that, we're going to get right into free agency. So today we're going to take a look. I'm going to run through all the UFAs on the Leafs and see if we should either re-sign them and keep them or if we should let them walk. I'm going to be using contract projections from Evolving Wild. So that's going to be my main source for how I'm going to kind of estimate the value of these players. Now, these projections are obviously not perfect, not what the players are going to make, but I'm going to use it as like a baseline to kind of say, hey, would I sign the players to that kind of deal? What deal would I want them at if I were to sign them? Or if I would just simply let them walk in unrestricted free agency. Just pulling up the Leafs cap friendly right now. The Leafs have, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 unrestricted free agents this year. They have 10 unrestricted free agents this year. So we're going to talk a little bit about all of them. Right now, the Leafs are sitting at around 69 million in cap. So they have about 18 million in cap space. A lot to work with here. So yeah, before we get into this, though, I want to quickly give a shout out to our sponsors over at Manscaped. Fellas, blink if you haven't purchased a Father's Day gift yet. Yeah, we thought so. Today's episode is brought to you by Manscaped, the leaders in below the waist grooming. Maybe your pops had a bush since the 70s, and that's okay. Our friends over at Manscaped have created the total package for his special day, whether it's for the boys downstairs, his beard, or even the best pair of underwear out there. Manscaped has his bases covered. Head over to manscaped.com and get 20% off plus free shipping with code RINKRAT. That's code RINKRAT, code RINKRAT. Take them from daddy to zaddy. Trust Manscaped. That was tough. Anyways, yeah, I mean, listen, we've been working with Manscaped for a long time now. This performance package that they're selling here is great. They have the Lawnmower 5.0 now. We've been working with them since they've been on the 3.0. It's great stuff here. If you need a Father's Day gift, take a look at Manscaped. Check them out. Use code not code THPN. Use code RINKRAT. Wow. Get 20% off plus free shipping with code RINKRAT at manscaped.com. That's 20% off plus free shipping at manscaped.com when you use code RINKRAT, RINKRAT. Never forget where you came from, if you know what I mean. Happy Father's Day from Manscaped. All right. I mean, this one is gonna be a lot of fun. And I'm gonna like kind of set the scene here with how I believe the team should approach the free agency period, right? The philosophy with how we should approach free agency. So right now, going into next year, like I mentioned, we have around 18.8 million in cap space. We have 16 contracts signed. If I bring up cap friendly here quickly, 16 contracts signed on our 23-man roster. And the cap went up from $83 million to around $88 million. So we got an increase of $4.5 million. So just looking at our contracts right now, I think we're in kind of a period where it's like a wait and see year. We don't really have too much cap certainty. The only guys we have really signed long-term is Morgan Riley, William Nylander, and Austin Matthews. You could include, I guess, Simon Benoit. You could include a guy like David Kampf, but I mean, those guys are more auxiliary pieces. Our main core is kind of in flux, or could be in flux. We don't really know. There's a lot of uncertainty around our cap. Obviously, when you have John Tavares and Mitch Marner both making around $11 million respectively, they're going to be free agents next year. And we don't know what they'll make. We don't know if we're going to re-sign them. We don't know if we're going to trade them. And I don't think we'll know before July 1st. So I think this needs to factor into the decision of the team when they consider re-signing guys, how much term, how much cap they want to give these guys, because I think ultimately you want to have flexibility for when you do have cap certainty, for if you do re-sign Mitch Marner, if you do re-sign John Tavares, or if you trade both of them and the players you get back are signed long-term, how you want to navigate that and how you want to go about that, that's up to the Leafs. But for me, in my opinion, when they figure out how they navigate that, that'll probably be next year. And that's when they're going to have the most certainty. So in 2025, 2026, that's when I believe the Leafs should kind of be more aggressive with their approach in free agency. Right now, I think they're going to be more reserved, right? We saw it a little bit last year with Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi, I guess Klingberg, a lot of the guys we brought in 1-year deals. If they're good 1-year deals, a little bit of an expensive cap hit, but again, 1-year deals, prove it, show us what you got. We don't want to risk the future of our salary cap here for one player if we miss on a player. So that's the philosophy I'd be going into with here. Kind of similar as last year. We want to take a look at guys who are, let's call it shorter term, unless we're certain that we're going to get a good deal on them. So let's start with the forwards. Obviously, Max Domi, Tyler Bertuzzi are the two unrestricted free agent forwards. And there was a report that came out recently from Elliot Freeman saying the team was a little worried about term, respectively, with both those players. And obviously, as I mentioned before, they should be in the sense that, again, you don't want to be uncertain with the cap. Starting off with Max Domi, though, just to take a look a little bit at his performance last year and what he made last year. He was signed to a 1-year deal with the Leafs, $3 million, around 3.5% of the cap. He's 29 years old, 80 games played, 8 goals, 44 points at 5-on-5. Max Domi's a little bit of an interesting character because when he's on the ice, stuff happens, right? Good stuff happens. The team scores, but it seems like these underlying models don't really value him that much. He's always performing over his expected value according to these XGAR, XGoal models. So Max Domi's a little bit interesting in that sense. Not very good defensively, has the ability to play center, but for most of the season played left wing for us. So Max Domi is someone who, in theory, I would want to keep on this team. I like the way he played. I like the style of play. I would choose to re-sign him. But if we head over to the contract projection page over on Evolving Wild, they projected him to have around they projected him to get a 4-year deal and valued around $4.5 million. And to me, that's a little bit too much for Max Domi. I like Max Domi as a player. I respect him. I think he's good. I just feel like that seems like too much for me right now, for us right now. Too much of a commitment. 4 years, 4.5 mil. It just really feels like it's, again, too big of a deal here. If I were the team, I'd be looking at somewhere between the range of 3.5 mil, kind of similar to what we signed him to last year. But 4.5, 4.8, that's a little bit too much for me. That's a little bit rich. You can let me know what you think about Max Domi and if you'd sign him kind of to that deal in the comment section down below. But yeah, for me, I feel like that's a little bit too much. What the deal that I would imagine us signing Max Domi to would be a shorter term deal at around the same number he hit right now, $3 to $3.5 million. I think that's the sweet spot right there. And honestly, like, I wouldn't be opposed giving Max Domi an 8-year deal. It depends on what the number is. I wouldn't be going to 4 on that 8-year deal. If we can get him on an 8-year deal for 3, I know that sounds kind of crazy, but that's a kind of player I wouldn't mind sticking around for a long time. And I mean, that contract could easily provide value with how much we expect the cap to go up over the next 3, 4, 5 years. That's where it could potentially provide value down the road just because the cap increases so much. But again, I would sign Max Domi. 4.5, 4.8, 4-year deal. That's too much for me. So if Cap Friendly is Max Domi's agent, I'm saying, sorry, Max, we're going to have to let you walk here. If you don't get what you like in free agency, maybe come circle back. I'd give you a 1-year deal at 3.1. I'd give you maybe a 2-year deal at 3.7, which is what they're projecting for Max Domi on a 1 or 2-year deal. But that's about as high as I would go. So right now, it's a yes for me to keep Max Domi, but it's a no for the amount that he is projected to get from Evolving Wild. Let's move on to the next player in Tyler Bertuzzi. Tyler Bertuzzi last year signed to a 1-year deal, $5.5 million, around 6% of the cap. Again, left winger. We need left wingers, so that's important. Little bit about his season last year: 80 games played, 15 goals, and 35 points at 5-on-5. If you remember, Tyler Bertuzzi kind of started the year a little slow, a lot slow. I mean, and then kind of ramped it up in the second half of the season. Something I like about Tyler Bertuzzi is that his line is always the one that seems to win minutes with regards to expected goals and Corsi. So he's kind of like the opposite end of the spectrum, I guess, with Max Domi, in the sense that he's very, very good analytically. But I feel like his style of play on ice comes in at a little bit less than that. I think he's a much better passer than he is shooter. And I think his ability to score goals is maybe slightly overrated in market But I still think he's a good player. I still think the deal we got him for last year, won by 5.5. I think that was a good deal for us. So if we're going to talk about re-signing or letting him walk, Tyler Bertuzzi is definitely a player I'd want to re-sign with the Leafs. And flipping over to Evolving Wild, I think the agent over at Evolving Wild and I have a good deal. I'm putting on my GM cap here and I'm saying, hey, it looks like you guys are predicting a 4-year term for Tyler Bertuzzi at a $4.9 million cap hit. I will absolutely take that. I'd run to the bank and accept that almost right away. If you can, I like Tyler Bertuzzi on a basically $5 million deal over 4 years. I feel like you can't go wrong. He again provides that style of play that we were kind of lacking in the sense that he provides some bite, which is good. He's an analytics. Let's call him what he is. He's a little bit of an analytics darling, where he does really do very well with his expected goal share. Always dominates that. Always seems to be his line outperforming the opponent's line. I like Tyler Bertuzzi. If that's the deal we get him on, I'm game for it. I am game for it. So to recap, Tyler Bertuzzi, the only two UFA forwards available right now for us, Tyler Bertuzzi and Max Domi. I would honestly want to re-sign both of them, but Max Domi seems like his projected cap hit might be a little bit out of reach for us, whereas Tyler Bertuzzi definitely is in that range. Let's flip over to the D. We got a couple D who are free agents, most notably, of course, TJ Brodie. TJ Brodie signed with the Leafs 4 years ago, $5 million, 6.14% of the cap hit. He's 34 years old now. And I mean, I don't know if there's much more we can say about TJ Brodie that's already been said. Listen, he had a great 4 years with great 4 years with the Leafs in those early years. The last year, though, left a lot to be desired. I understand that he was going through a lot as a player emotionally, but again, just his performance on the ice wasn't good enough. And that showed, right? He only played one playoff game for us. Would I want to re-sign him? Unfortunately, no. It feels like he's already lost a step. He's 34 years old. He only played one playoff game for us. I think it's time for us to go our separate ways. Listen, if he wants to come in on a sweetheart deal, I don't even know if I would do that. Like I don't even know if I'd give him that cheap deal because, again, like we talked about off the top of the show, we have technically five defensemen signed right now. 4 really, because Cade Weber is on that list. I doubt Cade Weber gets playing time next year. But we also have Timothy Liljegren. So again, 4 or 5-ish defensemen available. That means we only have 2 slots to fill. And I feel like we really this team wants to restructure this decor. And I think bringing TJ Brodie back, even if it's on like a league min deal, I don't think it makes sense for this team. So I'm going to go with a no for TJ Brodie. Flipping over to Evolving Wild. The predicted term is around 3 years at $4.8 million. That is a hard no. There's no way I could get anywhere near that number, for me at least, with TJ Brodie. I appreciate what you've done for us, TJ, but I think it's time for us to let you walk. Moving on to Mark Giordano. He signed he signed a 2-year deal at $800,000, which is just basically the league minimum with the Leafs 2 years ago. 40 years old now. Again, same thing I said about TJ Brodie in the sense of like how the structure of our defense is. I liked Mark Giordano. I think he was good for us down the stretch. But again, 0 playoff games for us. Maybe you could bring him back as a 7th D-man if he wants to come back. But I think realistically, Mark Giordano's probably going to retire. Haven't really heard much on that front, but love what he did for us. I just don't think that it makes sense for us to continue with Mark Giordano. So Mark Giordano, TJ Brodie, at one point was one of the best defensive pairings in the NHL many, many years ago. But now, as they're both on our team, it seems like it's time for us to let them walk. The 2 more interesting candidates here that I want to talk about are the 2 guys we acquired at the trade deadline. Ilya Lyubushkin, starting with him. He signed a 2-year deal, $2.75 million at around 3.3% of the cap hit with Buffalo after the Leafs got traded for him originally when he walked in free agency. He's 30 years old right now. He works as a partner for Morgan Riley. I like his physicalness and what he brings to the team. But my only issue with Ilya Lyubushkin in re-signing him is it's not a hard yes for me. It's not a hard no for me. It's a maybe for me. Ilya Lyubushkin is a guy who I think the Leafs maybe don't sign out the gate. But if he's available late down the road and you're kind of don't land the big fish you want on defense, you circle back and you look at him then. like I said, he works as a partner for Morgan Riley, but I feel like there's bigger fish out there in free agency, and you don't want a partner for Morgan Riley who is only going to be good enough, right? You want a guy who's good, not just good enough. Lyubushkin is good enough to play with him, but we want someone better than that. Flipping over to Evolving Wild, he's projected to get a cap hit around 2 years at $1.84 million, and that's actually a respectable deal. I would consider signing him to that. But again, I think our sights should be elsewhere in the sense that we should be looking at one of the bigger defensemen in free agencies, in the Brendan Montours or the Brett Pesci's of the world. So we want to maybe look a little bit bigger. And again, we only have two or one really space on our starting of our defense here. So there's not a lot of room to work with, right? Morgan Riley's locked in for sure. Jake McCabe is locked in for sure. Simon Benoit is locked in for sure. And you have to assume Timothy Liljegren is also locked in for sure. So only really two spaces to play with here. So I like Ilya Lyubushkin at 2 years at $1.8 million, which is what's projected on Evolving Wild. I would be okay with that. But from a team building perspective, I would wait and see, not sign him just yet, circle back towards the end of free agency if he's there and you don't kind of have that, the rest of your defense core fleshed out, then I would sign him to that deal. So yeah, that's it for Ilya Lyubushkin. On to the guy I'm very excited about is Joel Edmondson. I thought he was a good fit with the team last year. He signed a $3.5 million deal with the Montreal Canadiens 4 years ago at a 4.29% cap hit. He's 30 years old right now. Looked good and happy with him on our depth chart. I like him as a depth defender, but I feel like he provides more than just a third line defender. You know, he eats tough minutes. He plays very well physically. He's very good at boxing out, and he can play that PK1 for you. I like the way he played for us in the playoffs. Obviously, he's not the best puck mover, not the best in those situations, and wasn't able to finish some goals for us. But hey, that's not what you're expecting out of Joel Edmondson. I like his style of play. I would bring him back. And looking over at Evolving Wild, he has so Evolving Wild is projecting to get a 2-year, $1.4 million cap hit. I am banging the table yes for that. So not only would I bring him back, but me and Evolving Wild are in agreement in that I would sign him to that deal. I would even go a little bit more if you had to for Joel Edmondson in that $2 million range. The Leafs do have a good amount of cap space. It's going to depend on what Timothy Liljegren gets in RFA. That's a conversation for another day. But yeah, like I love Joel Edmondson's style of play. If that's how much he's looking for, and that's how much his agent wants him to get him in free agency, I'm all ears for that. I love that. I really, really do love that. There's a couple more UFAs to get into before the end of this video. But before I do that, I just want to remind you about our sponsors over at DraftKings. The chase for the Stanley Cup continues, and the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NHL, is just as hot as it is on the ice, with same-game parlays, live betting, odds boosts, and so much more. Don't miss out on the Stanley Cup playoffs as they wind down. Right now, looking at the odds for the Stanley Cup playoffs, Panthers right now plus 114. They're up 2-0 in the series. Edmonton Oilers are minus 135, taking it back home. If you're interested in betting on that game, make sure you check out DraftKings Sportsbook. And if you're new to DraftKings Sportsbook, you got to check out this deal. Right now, new customers can get $5 to get 150 in bonus bets instantly. That's all you have to do is bet $5 and you get 150 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get 150 in bonus bets when you bet just $5 only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER, or in West Virginia, visit www.1800gambler.net. In New York, call 8778-HOPE New York or text HOPE NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas. 21 plus. Age varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. cdkng.co/ice for eligibility and deposit restrictions, terms, and responsible gaming resources. Let's get into the last three. I lied. There's 4 UFAs. I don't know how to count. Anyways, the last defenseman on the table, though. You guys probably forgot about this guy. John Klingberg. Yes, we're going to talk about John Klingberg. Last year, the Leafs picked him up for a 1-year deal, $4.15 million, 4.9% of the cap, 31 years old. And what a disaster that was. He was, and let's not make any mistakes about it. He was terrible for us. He was not good. He ended up getting hurt. It was sad to see. But luckily enough for us, we were able to LTIR him. We had really no negative effect on our team once he was injured. So yeah. But John Klingberg was once a very good defenseman, and I would consider bringing him back. He was someone I'd actually would very much consider bringing back, and I would look to give him kind of a 1-year deal, but similar to last year. But again, nowhere near that cap hit. I'm thinking like closer to league min, closer to $1 million, because the what he showed us was not good enough to earn him anywhere close to what we paid him in free agency. So let's get him in here. Let's get him rehab. Let's get him for cheap. Anything really under a variable amount is what I'm comfortable with. Evolving Hockey, switching over to that, projects him to get a 1-year deal at $1.9 million. Now, I know this is kind of penny pitching, but I would want that to be not significantly, but just a little bit lower so we can stay under that variable amount where if he doesn't work out for us, you can bury him, not have a penalty for it. Maybe you sign him to a league minimum deal and give him a no move clause where he cannot be sent down through waivers. Maybe that's something that he would prefer. And hey, if he doesn't work out with the team, he can just go play for another team. So maybe that's something you could consider. I would not sign him to around $2 million for 1 year. I would look a lot lower than that. And yeah, like I would consider bringing him back. This is someone who I think has upside, has definitely offensive upside, which the defense on the Leafs significantly lacks. There's really no one else other than Morgan Riley with offensive upside. So he definitely would be adding an element that the Leafs do lack on the back end. But again, we don't know if we're going to get a Klingberg like last year, which is most likely, or the one from 2 or 3 years ago when he was on Dallas and absolutely fantastic. So Klingberg is someone I would take a flyer on. It would have to be super cheap. Now let's flip over to the goalies. The Leafs have 3 unrestricted free agent goalies. And of course, the one that is most apparent right now is Ilya Samsonov. Last year, he signed as an unrestricted free agent back with the Leafs before the UFA period. Signed him to a 1-year deal. He made $3.5 million, around 4.2% of the cap hit. Right now, he's 27 years old. And just from the way the season went last year, it seems like that 2022-2023 season is more so an outlier than what Ilya Samsonov is, right? If we take a look at his player card and we take a look at his stats, Ilya Samsonov has really only had one season where he played over 40 games, where he had a $919 save percentage. That was his best year. Then the other 2 seasons he played over 40 games, one with the Capitals, one with the Leafs, below a 900 save percentage, 896 and 890 respectively. My issue with Ilya Samsonov is just he seems to be the type of goalie who crumbles when the pressure is really on him. He hasn't done well for us enough in the playoffs. Last 2 years, it's very tough to cite save percentage in such a small sample. But again, last 2 years, he had 14 games played and was around 897 save percentage, 898. And that's just simply not good enough as a goalie for this team. This team cannot be held back by a performance like that from a goalie. I would be looking elsewhere. What they're going to get on goalie, I don't know, right? You have Joseph Woll. You have a very unique situation where you do have one goalie who is very, very cheap, making only $766K this year. I don't think Ilya Samsonov is the right goalie to pair Joseph Woll with. It's just as simple as that. So I would say no to Samsonov. Flipping over to Evolving Wild just to look at what his contract projection would look like. They're projecting him to get a 1-year deal at $3 million. Again, not for me. I'm out on that. Good luck in free agency. Ilya Samsonov was a fun guy to watch, but I don't think he's the right fit for this team. So there's that. Moving on, you had Martin Jones. Martin Jones, we signed obviously last year, 1-year deal, $850,000. 22 games played, 902 save percentage. People kind of forget that he really almost saved the Leafs season. We were trending towards a very bad place when Joseph Woll got hurt and Ilya Samsonov was kind of performing like absolute detritus and got sent down. We were really struggling. We were really, really struggling. Martin Jones kind of steered the ship in the right direction, did some good things for us. And as a third goalie, I think he performed way better than expectations for us. So Martin Jones is someone who I would consider bringing him back again on that similar low cap hit. Yeah, I think you're going to need to bring back a goalie like Martin Jones, who can be your third goalie. So I would do it. Looking over at Evolving Wild, his contract projection is 1 year, $1 million. Honestly, the difference between the $850K and the $1 million, if you feel comfortable and if you feel like he works in the system and you feel like he's a good kind of mentor for Joseph Woll, I wouldn't be opposed to bringing him back on a 1-year deal like that. When it comes to the Leafs goalie structure, I really think they should be signing and carrying 3 goalies throughout the year. You have a very unique opportunity with Joseph Woll making such a cheap amount that you can get 2 backup goalies and kind of let them fight out for the backup spot. So we as a team could have a pretty good team goaltending while not expending a lot of your salary towards goaltending, which is a very unique situation, and it worked out for Vegas 2 years ago. So, yeah, I would bring back Martin Jones. Maybe a little bit cheaper if you can get him for less than $1 million. That'd be good. But again, a 1-year deal, very cheap. I think that's a good one. The last guy I want to talk about is very interesting because it's a guy who I've been absolutely ripping on for the last, I think 2 or 3 years, and that's Matt Murray. Matt Murray is a unrestricted free agency here. I'm sure you guys probably forgot about Matt Murray, and some of you, I know I could see it. You're shaking your head. You're saying, I don't want to touch this guy. I don't want to bring him back. But you know what? If you can bring him back, similar to what I mentioned for Martin Jones, if you can have one or the other, I would easily bring these guys back for 1 year, league minimum. If Martin Jones wants to walk in free agency, I think bringing back Matt Murray on a cheap 1-year deal is almost a no-brainer. Just let him fight out and see what he can bring you in training camp once he becomes fully healthy. Is he healthy? I don't know. We don't know what his situation looks like right now, but you cannot deny the pedigree. The issue with the Matt Murray contract is that you gave up assets to acquire him and he cost $4 million for you. That's no longer a problem. The assets have already been given up. His contract is now done. You can bring him on for $750K, $800K, very, very cheap league mint deal. And that could provide value for you. How many other goalies can you say that you could sign, have won 2 Stanley Cups, starting for their team at a league minimum deal? Listen, he's old, he's 30, but he's not that old. And as a third goaltender, I really think it could work out. Matt Murray could be a solution. And again, if it doesn't work out, this guy he's with a contract like that, it's very easy to send him down to the minors. We literally sent down the guy who was supposed to be our starting goalie last year to the minors. So goalies is a very fluid situation. I wouldn't be opposed to signing Matt Murray and carrying 3 goalies throughout the year. Obviously, if you do that, again, I would look towards free agency to sign more of an established 1B to go alongside Joseph Woll and go back and forth. But I think Matt Murray, having him there just in case with the amount of injuries goalies get, I think it's a good option. So that just about does it for the UFAs. Going to be looking to do some more draft stuff in the future, and then also talk about the general free agency period and who the Leafs should target in the open market come July. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, make sure you subscribe down below, turn notifications on so you be notified when we release our videos. Also, if you made it this far, that means you like our content. So please press that like button. It goes a long way for us here on the Rink Rat Report. And yeah, guys, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on who you think the Leafs should keep, what number you would keep those players at, and yeah, just general thoughts about our current UFA situation in the comments down below. Always love to converse, always love to chat. And yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll catch you in the next one. Go Leafs go.